Welcome back to EFD. Today we've got 10 teams who saved themselves from disaster seasons. Let's go. 10. Hamburg 2016-17. After years of close escapes, Hamburg have finally trickled down into the second tier. The Grim Reaper was lurking around every corner in the Volkspark Stadion, with his scythe's nearest miss coming in 2016-17. And the misses were plentiful on the pitch too, with Hamburg only scoring 8 times up to December, picking up a grand total of 4 points, 0 wins and 8 losses just before the Christmas decorations started to be put up. But Die Rothosen managed to continue their record of being the only club to play in every Bundesliga since its inception, with a 2-1 win in the last game of the season against relegation rivals Wolfsburg, seeing them 1 point clear of danger. But much to the delight of the rest of the Bundesliga, they haven't been lucky since. 9. Alaves 2017-18. The Basque Country has classically had 2 dominant teams, Athletic Club and Real Sociedad. Alaves have always remained in the dark despite appearing in more European finals than Sociedad and reaching the final of the Copa del Rey more recently than Athletic. Upon return to the Spanish top flight in 2016, the first time they've reached La Liga in a decade, the Babazoros managed a top half finish, but it seemed as if second season syndrome was in full effect at the start of the next campaign. Alaves got off to their worst start to a season in their history, losing their opening 6 matches and failing to hit the back of the net in 5 of them. In fact, by December they'd only lost twice, losing the rest of their 13 games, and unsurprisingly, they were bottom. A dramatic rise under their 3rd manager of the season changed their fortunes though, and a 1-0 win over Deportivo La Coruña in February saw the plucky side 10 points clear of relegation. They remained clear of the drop for the remainder of the season, much to the joy of the fans inside the Mendeforroza. 8. Sheffield United 1990-91. It's been a long time since Sheffield United fans have seen their side in the top flight, but apart from when Tevez sealed their relegation fate from the Premier League back in 2007, we doubt the Bramall Lane faithful have ever felt as unenthused about a season as they were back in 1990. Winning promotion to the First Division in 1989, the Yorkshire club spent big to try and survive, bringing in Vinnie Jones and Brian Marwood to at least remain competitive against the big boys. Unfortunately, they had one of the worst starts in top flight history, failing to win any of their opening 15 fixtures and sitting rock bottom of the table by Christmas. Thankfully, they had the goal-scoring exploits of Brian Deane, who would go on to be the first goal-scorer in Prem history, and Ian Bryson combining for 20 goals between them, 55% of the club's total output of the season. A run of 7 straight wins from the end of February saw an unlikely resurgence by Dave Bassett's men, and they ended up victorious 10 times and getting 3 draws in their last 16 appearances. 7. Montpellier 2015-16. 3 years on from their unexpected title win in 2012, Montpellier's form returned to normal. La Payada had regular mid-table finishes, but the start of their 15-16 campaign threatened their top-flight status for the first time in just over a decade. They kicked things off with a 2-0 home defeat to newly promoted Angers and only picked up 4 points by October, losing 6 times and failing to score in their opening 4 games. And goal-scoring was an issue throughout their season, with Ninger being their most lethal player with a monstrous 6 goals. Notice the irony from George in the script. From the end of February though, Montpellier steered away from the danger of relegation, finishing in 12th spot. Perhaps this is to do with finding a goal-scoring touch, hitting the back of the net at least twice in every game they won at the back end of the season. But perhaps Montpellier just had lady luck on their side, as only 15 points separated 7th from the relegation zone. 6. Crotone 2016-17. Everyone loves an underdog story, and there appears to be one in Serie A every single season. Examples include Parma coming back from the dead, Benevento signing Premier League has-beens and giving them the captaincy straight away, but Crotone set the standard back in 2016-17. It was the first time in the southern Italian club's history that they were in the top flight, and it was a huge struggle for the Minnows. With their stadium seating just 16,000 and spending a meagre €6 million in their debut Serie A season, expectations were understandably low. And after taking just 14 points in their first 29 games in the division, it seemed as if they were waiting to be put out of their misery. Even the manager, David Nicola, promised to cycle from Crotone to Turin if they managed to beat the drop. And come July, that is exactly what he had to do. The 800-mile trek was only possible due to the fact that Crotone picked up a mammoth 20 points in their last 9 fixtures, including beating Inter and drawing against Milan. A 3-1 win over Lazio on the final day of the season secured their top-flight status as they finished in 17th, just 2 points ahead of Empoli. But unfortunately, that fairy tale ended in 17-18, with a loss against Napoli on the last match day sending them back down to Serie B. 5. Tondela 2015-16. Much like Crotone, Tondela were also saved in miraculous circumstances, but unlike the Italians, they've remained in the top flight ever since. In their first 14 games in Portugal's top flight, the club managed just one victory, picking up just 2 points, less than one per manager as they cycled through 3 coaches in under half a season. Thankfully for Tondela though, it was third time lucky, with manager Petit somehow using the dark arts to keep them in the top flight. Tondela conceded just 7 goals in their last 7 games, a stark contrast to their average of 1.8 conceded per game in their matches beforehand. They were in the relegation zone from the start of November until the penultimate game of the season, despite picking up some historic results. A 2-2 draw with Sporting Club away, a 1-0 win at the Estadio do Dragão against Porto, and a 2-0 win against Coimbra on the last day of the season guaranteed them safety by just 1 point. That marked the end of a memorable season for the 5,000 fans that can fit in their tiny stadium. 4. Werder Bremen 2017-18. Werder Bremen's last taste of glory was all the way back in 2009, picking up a DFB Pokal thanks to a goal from Mesut Ozil. Die Werderaner are the joint third most decorated club in German football history, and though their 11th place finish in 17-18 is a far cry from hitting the heights they were used to, they'd have taken it given their start to the season. Under the guidance of 39-year-old Alex Nouri, an interim manager turned permanent at the start of the season, Werder managed an average of 0.36 goals per game in their first 11 fixtures, unsurprisingly picking up 5 draws and losing 6 times. After Nouri's sacking, it took until February for Werder Bremen to get out of the relegation zone, with Florian Kohfeldt managing to pull them into the safety of mid-table mediocrity. Realistically, the Green and Whites won't be expecting to challenge for Europe in 2018-19, but they did bring back club record scorer Claudio Pizarro for his 4th stint at the club, who's now being coached by a manager 4 years his junior. 3. Tottenham Hotspur 2008-9. We're going to go back a decade now, when David James was in the PFA Team of the Year, Pro Evo legend Obafemi Martins joined Newcastle, and Spurs actually won a trophy. The man who led them to League Cup glory was Juan de Ramos, and the Spaniard brought in the likes of Luka Modric, Giovanni Dos Santos and Roman Pavlyuchenko to attempt to topple Arsenal's dominance of North London. Unfortunately for the Lily Whites though, after 8 games of the following season, there were more points on a triangle than Spurs had in the league. During this period, they had just 2 goal scorers in the Prem, one of them being Jermaine Genius, and failed to net against Wigan, Portsmouth and Hull. Thankfully, the pain wouldn't last long for Spurs fans though, with Levy sacking Ramos and paying £5 million to bring in Harry Redknapp from Pompey. Ari's men only lost 9 games for the remainder of the Premier League campaign, finishing 2 points off a European spot in 8th place. Not bad for a side that was in deep peril the previous November. 2. Antalyaspor 2016-17. Football in Turkey is usually crackers, ranging from a hellish atmosphere in stadiums to match fixing in abundance, but Antalyaspor's season in 16-17 is possibly one of the weirdest to date. One of Mourinho's right-hand men, Jose Morais, who was a part of his staff from Porto all the way to his 2nd stint at Chelsea, was starting his first full season in charge of the club, and it began horrifically. The Scorpions lost 5 and drew 3 of their opening 8 games, scoring just 6 goals despite possessing talent such as Samuel Eto'o and Villa legend John-Il Makoun. Needless to say, Morais was binned off and got replaced by Ritsa Chalimbe, who was embarking on his 13th managerial job at the age of 55. Although expectations must have been low given his 39% average win record, Chalimbe actually managed to salvage Antalyaspor's season. Finishing 5th, they just missed out on European football, but despite bringing in Samir Nasri and Jeremy Menez, they started the 17-18 campaign nearly as badly as the season prior. Losing 4 and drawing 3 of their opening 8 games, they were unable to replicate the previous term's change in fortunes, finishing 14th, just 5 points above the relegation zone. 1. Crystal Palace 2017-18. After finishing 14th in the 2016-17 campaign, their third highest finish in Premier League history, the future was beginning to look a little bit bright at Selhurst Park. After the departure of Sam Allardyce, the Eagles appointed Frank de Boer, who despite failing at Inter, had an impressive CV from his time at Ajax. The Dutchman won 4 Eredivisie on the bounce, and Palace fans expected some expansive football after having to endure Aladici's style of play for just over half a season. What they got, however, was an even more dour spectacle, with the club scoring a grand total of 0 goals in their opening 7 games. De Boer was in the dugout for 4 of these matches before getting the boot, with grizzled veteran and part-time owl Roy Hodgson taking his place. Although he was unable to fix Palace's goal drought instantly, the Englishman managed to go 8 games unbeaten before Christmas, steadying the ship just in time for the new year. Palace finished the season in 11th after winning their final 3 games of the season, one of them a 5-0 victory over Leicester, and ended with 45 goals scored. Not bad for a club who took 8 games to get off the mark. So those were our 10 teams who saved their seasons from disaster, but can you name any more? Did we miss any out? Let us know as always in the comments below. Now if you've enjoyed this, why not check out yesterday's Football Mundial and Stat Wars from the weekend, always a cracker. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.